Raina Troy Hotline.
Alicia, Michael, what's going on?
We know you have takes. We have takes.
I'm actually surprised that your rant line, rave line, whatever, isn't completely full.
Why can't we just win a game?
Can I blame Michael Castillo for this?
Can I blame Bob Connolly for this?
Could I put on a zebra shirt and just go out there? Scratch, claw, up against the wall.
Can't explain it what I'm feeling right now, guys. I can't believe it.
Let's open up that rave line! Woohoo!
Oh, I can't believe USC has hired Lincoln Riley. Oh, yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rant Line Radio, episode 493, coming to you on Monday, July 31st. We're going to talk about the latest in USC football, including the beginning of fall camp. The Trojans have finally opened fall camp. College football season basically upon us. We're going to talk about the goings on there, injury updates on Bear Alexander. We're going to talk about what Deuce Robinson looks like, some shakeups on the offensive line, and so much more. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at Rant of Troy, like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Rant of Troy. You can email the show, rantoftroy@fanside.com, and give us your calls on the Rant Troy Rant Line. 818-643-7227 is the phone number. As always, I'm your host, Mike Garcia, along with my co-host here in the Rant Troy studio in Los Angeles, Alicia DeRotola.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, we are back, and I'm super pumped because fall camp is here, but also we've got a bunch of people over in the chat here live on YouTube. We've got Rama Murdy, we got Cigar, Tim, Fighting on MC, Kenny's in the chat, Nick is there, LA Fred is there. We got a ton of people. And really the Rot Squad in general, I think, is growing, Alicia. We had a big call-in show last week on Thursday night, a members-only call-in show over on YouTube, and it was so much fun. Something that we're planning to sort of do more as the season comes along, right?
Yeah, that went. Honestly, I was really worried because technologically we have had hiccups in the past, and doing a live call-in show felt like, well, this is just going to turn into another one of those. And it went beautifully. It went smoothly, and most importantly, it was just super fun to catch up with, some of the more familiar faces from the Rock crew. We got to chat with Darlene and Sean in beautiful Austin, Texas, and even Kenny and Saman from Traveler Hates Thursdays jumped on. So it was really, really fun to do. And we look forward to doing it way more because there's just so much we can do with that during the regular season after games, and let the fan voices be heard.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're all about. We're all about the Rant Line, and the Rant Line number, of course, 818-643-7227.
I was going to try and do it, and I missed it.
What were you going to do?
7227.
Oh, I mean, want to try it again? 818-643-7227. Suck it, what's Bruin show? I guess that works. That sort of works. We got a comment on YouTube. Where do I join the Rot Squad? You can join the Rot Squad. There is a link in the description of the show here, both on YouTube and where you're watching or listening, wherever you're listening to. It'll be in the show notes there. You can join us, $4.99 a month. You get bonus episodes on YouTube. You get to join our Discord, and the Discord is how we're basically doing the call-in shows. So it gives you access to the call-in shows. You get custom emojis in the YouTube chat, and bunch of stuff, bunch of content that we're going to be bringing during the season. We're super excited about. So go join that. Come join the Rot Squad. $4.99 a month, cheaper than a Big Mac.
Yeah,
right.
Better
than a Big Mac, for sure.
Yeah.
Big Macs are gross.
Certainly
and
cheaper.
The Rot Squad, not gross. So you can join us. And you mentioned Kenny was on there. Kenny's in the chat here live on YouTube, but also Kenny will be here next week when we have our preseason roundtable episode with Kenny and our friend Jake from the What's Bruin show. But I told Kenny that I would promise to get this ready. So here we go. There we go. Awesome. That is the THT theme. We're gonna have to get that ready and ready to go next week as well. For our roundtable, Kenny Martin from Trevor Lade's Thursdays and Jake Merrifield from the What's Bruin Show will be on the pod next week for a big roundtable. And then after that, we've got offensive and defensive previews, season predictions coming up, and then it's game week all of a sudden. So a lot of content coming here on Reign of Troy Radio. If you're watching us on YouTube and you like the content, be sure to like the video first and foremost. Then make sure that you subscribe. Make sure you're here every Monday, 5 p.m. for our episodes. During the season, we'll be here Wednesday, 5 p.m. as well, along with post-game CarCast. And then, become a member of the Route Squad as well. So super excited about everything coming everybody's way. So I think we just need to get into the news, shall we? All right. We start the news with USC Media Day, which went down last Thursday. Some nuggets to come out of that, including things on the offensive line. Jonah Monheim is moving to left tackle, and Michael Tarquin moving to right tackle for the Trojans. Alicia, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Apparently, it's mostly a see what we've got here kind of switch, which I'm always in favor of it. You might as well find out what your best five is in the order that you're in. Monheim has been around long enough that I think you can trust him to make a swap from right to left to invest the time in the offseason in fall camp to see how he does there. I wouldn't do that to a younger player. I wouldn't waste that time with a younger player, but I kind of like the investment with Jonah Monheim, even if it's let's see what we've got, and then have him end up starting the season at right tackle and have him as sort of an option if there's an injury or if it's just not working out to change things up. So I'm in favor of it. I like it. Michael Tarquin played right tackle, I believe, before, so I think it also sort of makes sense. If you wanted to take a little of a head tilt approach to this news, you might worry a little bit if things didn't go well enough in spring camp in that arrangement.
Sure.
That you're needing to explore this, but I would rather cover my bases, and I'm not ready to jump to a conclusion there about whether or not
You'd rather have the move now, right? Like, it's better to have the move now than 2 or 3 weeks from now. I think that would be the red flag.
Yes, absolutely.
Where you'd look at it and say, is something wrong with the offensive line, and then not gelling or whatnot. You want to sort of have that move in the bag. But I'd also say that, this came out at USC Media Day the day before fall camp started. That means that this wasn't this sudden decision. This is probably something that's been in the works for a long time, right? Like something that you would assume Monheim and Tarquin have had the entire summer to sort of mentally prepare for. So I think that, that if that's what the plan is, that's what the plan is. We'll see how things, gel during the summer. During fall camp, we'll hear whatever we hear. Obviously, fall camp is access for the media is limited. We're not there, but on top of that, the media that does go to fall camp every day doesn't get to see everything. So we're just gonna have to kind of wait and see until week 0 at the end of August when SC plays San Jose State, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the good thing is that I think USC has earned a little bit of trust here on the offensive line. I think Josh Henson did a outstanding job with that group last year, and so you sort of have to put your faith.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of big guys on the offensive line, we're going to talk about big guys on defense, and that starts with Eric Gentry. This is from Chris Trevino on Twitter during USC Media Day. Eric Gentry has clarified how big he is. 6'7", 223 pounds. basically he could be starting at like the 3 for the Raptors.
Yeah. Cigar in the chat said he saw Gentry's interviews on Media Day. Dude seems possessed. He seems laser focused, knowing this year is massive for him. I think that the size thing also plays into that, right? Where it's clear that even with the limitations that he had recovering from the injury, that he's been in the weight room, that he's taken it seriously, that he needs to add some bulk. I'm looking it up right now because I can't remember what his listed weight was last year. Give me a second. Yeah, he was listed at 200 last year. He was listed at 6'6", 200. So, that feels like a player who's taking seriously their need to continue to develop physically, and you gotta love it. You gotta love it. And I agree with Cigar. Everything that we've seen, he's still listed on the roster at 6'6", 205. So like USC's not giving away the weight gain, but we'll trust what he says. The roster doesn't necessarily get updated by the coaches specifically. So yeah, I think there's a lot of reason to be excited for Eric Gentry and to just sort of embrace the unicorn that is your 6'7", 6'6" linebacker.
Yeah, I said I joked about him being in the NBA. Just look at the Lakers roster. Cam Reddish is 6'7", 217. So there's your comp. 223, a little bit bigger for Eric Gentry. And yeah, I saw a tweet to Chris saying that, like, that's not the size for a linebacker and all that stuff. And Chris had a good reply about, like, but he's a unicorn. Like, he's a unicorn for a reason. Like, he's different than everybody else. And really, if you're 6'7", 223, what are you the size for in football, right? Like, no, you're just not going to make sense for any position outside of wide receiver, tight end. So we need to stop expecting those things, because Eric Gentry is just he doesn't fit the mold of anything else. That doesn't mean that he's limited. It just means you just have to not expect what everyone else is doing, right? Like, he's different.
You don't want to put players in a box, especially unique talents can. Yes, they present.
Well, you might want to put him in the box if you're against a running team.
Yeah, you want to put him in the box when you're trying to stop the run. That's fair.
Right.
You don't want to put him in a box where you limit his potential because you've decided that every player that plays every position on the field has to be prototypical.
Right.
Number one, prototypical is a range, and it's not like a hard in stone sort of metric. And number two, like, some of the best players in the game are not prototypical. They're weird dimensions, and they get the job done. Like, that doesn't have to be the way that you determine a player. And so, yeah, we'll see what Eric Gentry is able to do on the field. The biggest thing for me with Eric Gentry was not like his dimensions are wrong to be able to make plays at linebacker. It was just clearly he needs to add weight. He needs to add mass so that he is more effective when he is trying to make plays as a linebacker, because he's having to go up against players who are just more hefty than him, and he needs to be able to stand up to them.
So is this what you're saying?
Size doesn't necessarily matter if you want it hard enough.
Yes, exactly.
Big shout out to the soundboard being back. SJ in the chat says if he was listed at 200, he's probably 190. Yeah, I mean, that's something to consider too. That just because he was listed at 200 last year doesn't mean that's the accurate number. It doesn't mean that the 223 is necessarily accurate now. However, I would believe what Eric Gentry says personally versus what is listed in the media guide. Just because the media guide is always going to, rosy up things.
Well,
that's their job.
We spent a whole segment last week talking about how Corey Foreman being is listed in the media guide as 235, and I have serious questions about that if they intend to have him playing on the defensive line. Which, by the way, I was listening to Keely Ewer's Victory podcast, yesterday, and she had an interview with Sean Nua, and Sean Nua was talking about Corey Foreman as a defensive lineman in his room. So that is answer confirmed. He is a defensive lineman in Sean Nua's room, and so I'm going to choose to believe that 235 is not accurate. So we can just throw all the weights that are on the roster out the window.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we'll see what happens with all those things. The more important thing, of course, is how those players play at the weight that they are, whatever that number is, and whether or not it sort of works for them. Let's talk about the defense a little bit more as we get into the happenings from fall camp. Bear Alexander, USC's big incoming transfer from Georgia, had a couple tackles for loss against TCU in the national championship game. A lot of hype coming in from the two-time defending national champs. He has a small injury right now. Isn't full go. Lincoln Riley's calling it a soft tissue injury. Are you concerned, or is this is just something that happens in week 1, right? Like you don't be concerned until week 2 and 3 and 4. Am I crazy?
If it were a different position, I would not be concerned.
Mystic Alicia is out in full force.
It's the last thing I wanted to hear. Bear Alexander feels so important to USC's defensive line transformation going into this year. And he's not the only one. There are others who are very important, Anthony Lucas and Keon Bars and all of those guys. Yes. But he's one of the big ones that you're looking at, and that has the combination of size and power and explosiveness on the defensive line to be a difference maker. And him not being able to practice his first week of practice, I'm not gonna lie, it worries me, because every little thing about this defense is gonna worry me until I see them on the field actually being competent at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not going to make a mountain out of a molehill. It's a minor injury, and we hope he can get back to practice, obviously, as soon as possible. But also the fact that Lincoln Riley addressed it at all makes something turn in my head that says, how minor of a minor injury gets mentioned? Like, if it was a minor injury,
Mystic Alicia is out in full force.
I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be
Mystic Alicia is out in full force.
It's not what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear Bear Alexander hitting the ground running, and I will feel a lot better when I hear the word that he is actually practicing. That's all I'm saying. Especially big guys. It's just we've seen so many times, so many big guys that the nagging injuries just are there and they never go away.
Yeah.
So it's not something to worry about unless you have anxiety problems like I do.
It's soft tissue
in
week 1. This is what happens.
I
thought the best point you made there was, you usually don't even say anything. There's nothing forcing Lincoln Riley to disclose the injuries, especially in this day of college football where every coach in America is super tight to the vest about literally anything. Lincoln Riley included. He's not going to talk about injuries if he doesn't have to. So yeah, him mentioning it certainly could be something more than that, but these generally are not the type of things that I would worry about in week 1, but we will see. And I get the anxiety. I get it. USC's defense needs everything to go their way, especially on the defensive line where SC's got to replace some dudes. Tooley's gone. SC's got to replace him, and they got to figure out something. Even though there's a lot of promising guys there when you look at Anthony Lucas, Bear Alexander, Corey Foreman, all of them. You want to see them actually gel together. The other thing to talk about from practice, not a lot going on that you get from the beginning of start of fall camp, but there was video of sort of drills. The media is allowed to take video of drills, but not anything beyond that, mostly because, again, you don't get to see like actual team periods and whatnot. But there's a video that's making the rounds from Ryan Young of Rivals of Deuce Robinson sort of running some routes, catching some balls. And Alicia, in the rundown, you said that he looks just like Drake London.
I'm just saying. I clicked on the video and I saw him running the route and catching the ball and continuing on, and the 19 isn't so different from a 15 and the body isn't so different from Drake London. It just got me a little bit pumped. Especially because we spent so much time talking about Drake London as they were using his physique even though he was a receiver.
Yeah.
They were using him almost like you'd use a tight end in terms of just the mismatches and the inside stuff that they were doing with him that I just thought was super exciting.
Yeah.
For USC to see.
Especially in the first 2 seasons.
Yes, especially in the first 2 seasons. And then, they branched him out. But like initially very much he was playing in the slot and doing what amounted to sort of tight endy slot routes and things. And so much of that came down to the size mismatch was where he could just eat people alive. You look at Deuce Robinson, there's no reason they can't do the same thing with him. There's no reason they can't. And that is just really exciting to see him fully formed on the football field. We spent time over spring talking about like, what do you get drafted? What do you go do baseball? Like all this kind of stuff and going like, can we get excited about this kid yet? One video, I'm excited about the kid. So yeah, I think again, we're not going to run away with a little drill in the beginning of camp. It doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Wait, hold on. Wait a minute. You're saying that we should not do the Dylan Baxter thing?
No, we should not do the Dylan Baxter
thing. Or you don't
want
to do what was the guy who transferred to Notre Dame that his dad coached at Purdue, so he transferred to Notre Dame? Somebody in the chat's going to remember this.
Who?
Running back
Carlisle?
Carlisle.
Yeah.
He had like crazy highlights too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't want to.
There's a long and storied history of crazy highlights against USC walk-ons on the practice field.
Yeah.
That get blown up into bigger things.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that the kid has a similar skill set to Drake London, and given what we saw Drake London achieve at USC, you could sort of create, draw that line between the two. And as Lincoln's Visor in the chat goes, USC is back to having the bottomless grab bag of 5-star wide receivers. Yeah. It feels like that.
Yeah. The way I look at it, the most exciting thing about that video, obviously, is being able to see Deuce Robinson, SC, go out and get him, beat Georgia for him, and all that kind of stuff. But there's a crime that has been committed here, and that's that Brendan Rice still has the number 2, and there wasn't a trade worked out to give the number 2 to Deuce Robinson. What are we doing here? Like, I understand. Brendan Rice has seniority. I get it. He had a hell of a Cotton Bowl. I get it. Nobody's talking about Brendan Rice. He might be the most underrated player on this roster because literally nobody ever talks about Brendan Rice going into the season. All the hype is about Dorian Singer, about Deuce Robinson, about Zach Branch. Nobody's talking about Brendan Rice and how insanely good he looked in the Cotton Bowl, which is a big growth area for him, considering that he was up and down all season last year. So I feel bad that I'm saying this about Brendan Rice, about taking his number away, but the kid is named Deuce. Like, what are we doing here?
Okay,
come on.
Just to give a hint to our when we do our offensive preview podcast, I have a take about USC's wide receivers and the somehow underrated nature of USC's wide receiver room at this point.
Who's more underrated, Brendan Rice or Michael Jackson III?
All of the above are underrated. That's the crazy thing. It's like, it's weird because I was so excited about Dorian Singer, and Dorian Singer is excellent, and it's going to be really exciting seeing him in Cardinal and Gold. But like, Mario Williams getting disrespected, Taj Washington's getting disrespected.
Taj,
Brendan Rice could have a massive year. Michael Jackson III, we all love that guy. It's just everyone's sleeping on a lot of wide receivers who I think are good. But
Makai Lemon, hello.
Makai Lemon and Kyron Hudson, and there's guys, there's dudes.
We've almost named them all.
Yeah, we almost literally.
Jacoby Lane.
No, we don't have to take Deuce Robinson's number away. Not Deuce Robinson's, Brendan Rice's number away. It's just that Deuce should be number 2, and Brendan Rice should have an equally cool number. I don't know.
Don't give him the 80 because don't put those BS expectations on him in that sense.
I'm saying you could.
No.
Although looking through,
but some other number,
To be fair, all the numbers are taken.
I mean,
you don't jump into the 80s.
I mean, 19 is a horrible number.
Yeah,
it's a terrible number, unless you're Johnny Tays, of course. Big shout out in the chat to M. Caro, who has joined the Rot Squad. So yeah, people are joining the Rot Squad left and right. Cigar has joined the Rot Squad as well. We're super pumped about that. But as we're talking about fall camp, and before we get to other new stuff, I want to talk about camp more. Alicia, what are you looking to get out of fall camp this year, in the sense of what are you looking to hear? What are the things that you will be happy to hear, and the things that you would not want to hear, etc.? What are those things?
Fall camp always begins and ends with injuries for me. It's really hard to assess things in camp, especially now. There used to be ways that you could glean stuff, especially those of us who went to practice, that got to watch the whole practice. We could learn a lot.
Those are the days. Yeah.
Those were the days. Now that it's sort of closed up, I don't even I'm going to trust the people who are at practice, and they're going to be able to give really, really good information, but not the kind of insight that you would get when you get to sit there and watch team periods and watch all of those things. So, it'll be just a little bit limiting in terms of the information that we get and the information we can trust. And even then, when we had full access to watch all of practice, everything we saw at practice, you still had to take with a grain of salt, because, there's a million stories of guys like Jamel Cook having an incredible, week of spring camp, and then
Jonathan Lockett, I thought, was the best corner I'd ever seen.
Jonathan Lockett was absolutely incredible. There's a whole list of wide receivers who just looked like this guy's going to be really, really in. And then they just, they fall off. So even that you can't trust completely, because it's not, it's sort of through a filter of what is and isn't real. So it's even less now. And so I'm just going to try and navigate all of that a little bit. The only real thing you take from camp is who is or isn't injured. And so to me, it's all about just sort of assessing how healthy USC makes it through camp, and then sort of go from there. I think any other anything the coaches say, I'm going to take with a grain of salt. Anything reporters say, I'm going to take with a lesser grain of salt, but still understanding the limitations of what they're able to see and observe, and all of that. But when it comes down to it, guys are either healthy or they're not.
Yeah. Remorty in the chat says, need to see a true depth chart for the defense. Yeah, I think that would be something that would be great. I just unfortunately wouldn't hold your breath. I don't know that the depth chart that SC puts out right before the San Jose State game, I don't think that is going to be gospel either. I think really it comes down to, what does SC look like against San Jose State in terms of personnel? And then you want the real unsettling answer. What does SC look like after the first month? After the first 6 games? We're going to talk about this all month as we, start to preview, the season. We do our offensive previews and defensive previews August 14th and 16th. Come back for those. But when so much of the discussion is going to be what are we going to see in week 0? I don't know. Secondly, is the team that we see in week 0 against San Jose State going to be the same team that you see in week 2 against Stanford? Maybe not. You look at last season, there was a whole bunch of changes. So look at Solomon Byrd, right? Solomon Byrd I think he had like 2 plays, 3 plays, whatever it was, against Rice. And then he was arguably SC's best defender against Stanford in week 2 last year. And then the season kept going, and then he became someone who seemingly, like most birds in the winter, migrated somewhere else because you didn't see him for the rest of the season, right? Like, I don't know. Things are going to change, and SC's got an interesting schedule this year where they start fall camp early. They get a week 0 game. And yeah, they get Stanford early as they always do, but there's also nobody that's a threat on this schedule for the first 6 games. And
the first six
and
weeks.
It's weird to say, but like that's what it is. So
yeah.
All right. Let's move on from camp a little bit. We'll come back to camp as we probably get questions in the mailbag segment about that, and move on to other news in USC football dumb. And we start with a flip. Florida State has flipped offensive line commit Manasseh Itete. He was committed to the Trojans in the 2024 class. He's flipped to Florida State.
Yeah, that's a bummer. The worst time maybe it's the best time for a recruit to sort of flip is right when fall camp starts, because it never feels as big of a deal as it does when you're in the middle of May and that happens, and it's like there's nothing else going on, and so this is the thing that's consuming me. In this particular case, I think that it's a bummer, but USC's offensive line class still is looking pretty strong. They've still got the bodies in there.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sweating it, to be quite honest. Maybe I'll be sweating it in December when things with the offense with the recruiting class in general are depending on where they're at. Maybe we'll look back on this and say, like, actually that was a bigger deal than we said it at the time. But also, like, bruh, fall camp is starting.
I know that this is a horrible opinion. It's not enjoyable to listen to. I don't care about recruiting right now.
It's not that interesting.
Just in general, especially when the transfer portal is so much more interesting. Like, I got nothing. I got nothing other than okay, sure. Like, I got nothing. Positively or negatively about USC, I almost feel the same way. Unless, it's like some, SC's going out and getting like a 5-star flip that, means something in a battleground state or whatnot. So, other news to discuss. Let's talk about the Pac-12 for just a really short minute, because this really does not affect USC at all. The Pac-12 is basically no more. Colorado moving to the Big 12. That was announced late last week, but now the rumors are that Arizona is to follow. Perhaps there's there's gonna be a meeting tomorrow with the Board of Regents at Arizona, but also, like, George Kliavkoff is gonna present potentially a TV deal to everybody. Like, what? Like, everything is in flux and not very presentable for the Pac-12 at the moment.
Yeah. Yikes. Okay, so Wildcat Authority, which is the 24/7 sports site for Arizona, put out a report on Monday that the Tuesday meeting of the Pac-12 would include a presentation on the TV deal, which is apparently going to be a streaming deal with Apple, which, by the way, Apple TV Plus does not miss all good shows.
Yeah.
So, like,
well, besides Ted Lasso, but yeah.
No, Ted Lasso's a good show. Silo, Bad Sisters. We're caught up on Hijack now. Like,
Hijack's incredible.
There's a handful of other shows that I want to watch on Apple TV Plus that I haven't been able to get to that people rave about. So, like, yeah, all wins, no misses.
Not paid for by Apple TV.
Not paid for by Apple TV Plus.
If you want to be a sponsor, RenderTribeFansite.com.
Apparently, they're gonna have the streaming rights for the Pac-12. but the number that Wildcat Authority threw out there as a potential number was 20 million per school, which, to put in context, 10 plus years ago, when the Pac-12 set their record. Oh, Mythic Quest in the chat, Kenny. I watched the first season a few days ago. Great show. Excited to continue. Back to the Pac-12. When the Pac-12 signed their big record TV deal over a decade ago, it was like 21 million per year per school. So the Pac-12 staying pat at that number when everyone else is exploding the numbers of their deals is exactly. I mean, USC and UCLA contributed to it because they couldn't possibly get a great deal when you've got when you lose those big brands. So like, yes, USC is at the heart of making it this way, but also like everything that's happened with the Pac-12 and the reasons Colorado is leaving are exactly why USC and UCLA got out when they did. And it's good that they did, because the Big Ten announced their distribution deal last year, and like it's gonna be 50 plus million per year per school at a low. The ESPN had this line in the article: the Big Ten is projected to eventually distribute 80 million to 100 million per year to each of its 16 members. Like, how can you not say the Pac-12 is dead? Oregon and Washington cannot sit here and accept 20 million per year. They can't. The programs will die.
There's one simple answer, and this sounds very. I hate myself for saying this, even as a joke. The answer is for George Kliavkov to call MBS and be like, "Hey, is this line directly to Saudi? You guys interested in Oregon State football?" Like,
yeah, get that Saudi money, man. Like Saudi blood money. That's exactly what
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
What do we like? I don't know. Like, it's bad, but as we talked about it kills me that the Pac-12 is dying. It kills me for nostalgic reasons that SC is changing things and leaving. But at the same time, it is nice to sit here on a podcast and talk about this. That doesn't, like, we don't have to talk. We really don't need to be talking about this. You know what I mean? Like, that is a weird luxury to be in. Like, I'm so over it, right? Like,
I blame Larry Scott for this.
Yeah. Potentially, yeah. But yeah, things are weird. I expect if Arizona leaves too, that at some point something else has gotta give.
Yeah.
By the way, jumping to a mailbag question that we got, an email from Andrew in Lisbon who says, do you guys want Oregon and Washington to join us in the Big Ten? I don't. It's probably a rivalry thing. No logic to it. And when I hear the rumors that the Big Ten doesn't want them and we're actively blocking them, I kind of like it. Andrew in Lisbon. I
have one selfish reason to want Washington, because like
Husky Stadium,
the trip to Seattle would be, that would be a good
we've
option
got family
to
and
have.
friends
We've got family and friends in
yeah.
Washington. It would be really nice to have an excuse to like have a built-in trip every few years, whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I want Oregon and Washington in the Big Ten because I respect them too much as programs, and I don't want to see the Pac-12 like go by the wayside. I don't care about Colorado, and to a lesser extent, don't care about the Arizona schools. And maybe this is elitist Pac-8 Michael talking, but like those schools added to the Pac-12 years and years and years ago, like. Oregon and Washington have such a long history for like 100 years with SC that you want them involved. Same with Stanford and Cal. Like, I want them involved with SC somehow just because of nostalgic sake. And I get that, maybe that's dumb, but like, I don't know. I feel genuinely bad for Oregon and Washington right now.
I'm with you. I whether it's nostalgia or just sort of some sort of weird West Coast pride angle. One of the things that I think is really sad about all of this is that the West Coast is overlooked enough in sports. Like it's pretty crazy when you look at just the distribution of like sports across the country. The West Coast is pretty sparse by comparison. And like this is only gonna heighten that on the college football landscape, and makes me really frustrated. The Pac-12 didn't just go all in with the Texas and Oklahoma Big 12 merger years ago, and
things would have been definitely different for sure. All right, let's turn the page and let's take a moment here to talk about more serious things. USC basketball, Bronny James suffered a cardiac arrest last week at practice. Almost a year since this happened last year with Vince,
Iwuchukwu.
There you go.
I'm trying to get in. I'm trying to become brave enough to say it.
Good.
And not feel like I'm butchering it. I'm trying.
There you go.
Iwuchukwu.
This happened last Monday night. He was released to the from the hospital on Tuesday. Horrible when it happens to anybody. It's special kind of horrible when it happens to, someone who is seemingly a very athletic person that you just wouldn't expect, right? So these are, our thoughts are with the James family and all those things that you think and say during these moments. But, it's the important part is that he's released from the hospital and turn a corner, right? Like moving on.
One important thing. He was conscious, seemed to have no brain sort of concerns, issues going on. That's big. So his health, it seems like it's good news on that front. And number two, it's just a really good reminder for anyone who's involved in youth sports at any level, to have to sort of review the procedures if there is a cardiac arrest, have the defibrillators or any other sort of thing nearby on hand, because as USC has now unfortunately but fortunately proven twice, when you have people who are trained to react to these kinds of situations, they don't have to end tragically. And too often they end tragically. So you never want this to happen to anybody, but my hope that would be that the good again comes from it, from, this happened to LeBron James's son. It can happen to anybody.
Right.
Be ready for it and you will save lives. That's my thing.
Yeah, 100%. So hopefully everything goes well with him on the mend and all that. Last year, Vince played last year, so that's potentially a good sign for Bronny James. We'll see what happens on the hardwood for the Trojans. And now we'll make that awkward transition to a more lighter topic. Alicia, you tweeted out a picture. You quote tweeted a picture from a 2024 recruit, Elijah Dotson, who went to a Michigan recruiting thing over the weekend, like a barbecue. And there was a picture that he tweeted. Tell us what you're seeing. If you're watching here on YouTube, we've got the photo.
Okay, this is
for those audio only listeners,
I'm just gonna paint the audio only listeners a picture.
Mm-hmm.
There is a blue table, a table with a blue tablecloth, and a gold napkin, and it says the
Blue and Gold Michigan. Yeah,
yes, it's very clearly a Michigan event, Michigan recruiting event.
Could be Pitt, but Michigan. We know it's Michigan.
Well, there's an overlay that has the pin at University of Michigan Stadium.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
So that tells us
Forgot to read. Yeah.
Yeah. And there is a plate. It's a white plate.
Yes.
And on that plate I'm going to go in a clockwise circle to paint this picture for you. So think about a clock. At about 1:00 is a chocolate chip cookie. At about 3:00 is a hot dog in a hot dog bun. Plain. No ketchup. No mustard. No relish.
Points for no mustard.
There's nothing on it.
Major points lost for no
plain
ketchup.
hot dog in a hot dog bun. At about 6:00 is 4 chicken tenders.
Yeah, buddy.
That look like they were chicken tenders of the frozen reheated chicken tender variety.
Hold on. Chicken tenders come in all shapes and sizes.
I'm not throwing shade at frozen chicken tenders.
Those look almost identical to the chicken tenders at Islands. Like,
okay,
you know what I mean? Like,
okay,
I'm not saying that there are Islands chicken tenders. I'm just saying like those type of chicken tenders come.
Blitz all night.
Yeah, wrong button on the soundboard. I'm just saying that those chicken tenders could have come from anywhere.
Fine.
Don't disparage them.
They're basic chicken tenders though. They're standard chicken tenders. And then
which are still good. Like chicken tenders are good.
From about 8:00 to 11:00 is
11:30. Yeah,
us to 11:30 is a pile of mac and cheese.
Mm.
Does not look like Kraft Mac.
Oh, but it looks good.
But it looks like it's sort of one of those sort of thicker noodle mac and cheese. It looks like there's actual real cheese in there. It looks it looks cheesy.
Oh, it looks good.
So I quote tweeted this. Michigan was getting roasted over this to the degree that I have not seen,
which is ridiculous.
Lincoln Riley's Easter brisket.
and the purple tuna that they put it out that people didn't realize that's what tuna looks like.
Yes, and the tuna. That not since those have I seen a photo of food in the college football sphere get roasted. And I brought this forward and said, I need to save this photo for when people ask me about Michael's food preferences, because I have never seen a more Michael friendly plate of food than this plate of food. This has Michael written all over it.
It's not an A+. And the reason it's not an A+, the lack of ketchup on the dog is problematic.
Fair.
Here's the thing. Most hot dogs itself, like the wiener itself, the glizzy, if you will, not great. Like you need a little ketchup.
Hot dogs are good, but yes, I agree. You need some ketchup. You need, I'm a big fan of ketchup and mayo personally.
Ketchup, just ketchup.
I don't do mustard, but I know I
love Chicago, but this is one thing that Chicago gets wrong. You need ketchup on that bad boy.
I really want to try a Seattle hot dog with the cream cheese on it.
No, it's disgusting. No. So the plate management, the cookie is a solid 1.5 inches, potentially 2 inches from the mac and cheese. Good. Cookies, mac and cheese cannot touch. That's weird. It's also a good distance from the hot dog away. That's good. Good placement on the plate. Now, the tenders do look like they get sort of touchy to the mac and cheese, but that's fine because tenders are dry. So and the mac and cheese isn't necessarily liquidy. So that's fine.
Maybe there's ketchup off to the side because the tenders need ketchup.
Oh, wait, hold on. That is a ketchup bottle off to this on the right side.
There is a ketchup bottle on the right.
Oh, so he just took the picture before he catched it up. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. It's back to an A+. We're back to an A+. This is great.
Ketchup within arm's length.
Yes,
in the very corner of the picture, you can just see the bottom.
Okay, actually, the only so now that we've established that, the worst thing about this photo is the lemonade. Lemonade is I like lemonade. I enjoy lemonade. I like to drink lemonade. Lemonade is not a drink that you have with a meal. It ruins your food. Like you need a solid middle ground beverage with your food. Love strawberry margaritas. I wouldn't have a strawberry margarita with my food. I'm going to El Cholo. I'm getting a strawberry margarita. I'm not having a strawberry margarita with my quesadilla. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I'm getting a Diet Coke to drink with my quesadilla like a sane person. So when we're looking at this, a lot of outrage. A lot of people say, this is a kid's plate. A lot of talk in the chat. This is a kid's plate. First of all, if you don't like chicken tenders, first of all, if you like chicken tenders, that doesn't mean that you're a kid. If you don't like chicken tenders, that doesn't make you an adult. That makes you a sad person. if you don't like mac and cheese, it doesn't make you an adult. That makes you like a very depressing person. Like, I'm sorry. So, like, the people hating on this are people that hate themselves.
I agree. I agree in that the people hating on this, I don't get it, because I would crush everything on that plate.
Yes.
There is not a single thing on that plate that I wouldn't eat and enjoy.
Oh, and then also everything's the same color. First of all, there's chocolate chips in the cookie, so that's
count.
not true. And once the ketchup gets placed upon the glizzy, then that's not the case either. But then the other thing that I think is important to get here. You're not going to the freaking barbecue at this recruiting gala to freaking eat squash. Like, you're gonna go here and like, I have all these options. I'm gonna take the asparagus. Bullshit, you are. Like, you're not. No. Like, no, no. So yeah, A+ plate. Big shout out to Elijah Dotson. And if SC hasn't offered him already, I think they should.
No, I agree.
That's where we're at.
I would agree with Cigar. At a recruiting function, I'm not gonna hate. I'm not gonna hate on what's on that plate. It's all good food as far as I'm concerned. But at a recruiting function where you're trying to impress folks, I feel like you probably can shell out for some.
Okay.
I don't know.
Honest question.
Maybe that mac is
honest
bussin'.
Question. Better. Smorgasbord here.
I would rather eat
this or the thing that Clemson had at the White House.
The McDonald's.
I think there was Wendy's too.
Was
right?
it Wendy's?
Like,
yeah.
I don't know. There was.
I will say this. I would rather eat that plate than 75% of the buffets that have been buffets that were offered at like Pac-12 Media Days or whatever.
Oh yeah,
which were never like bad, but
it's always the same.
There was a lot of stuff.
It's cold pasta salad with like little things in it, and like, oh, God forbid that it's not all the same color. So we've got like little shavings of little red bullshits in there. Like,
but also I don't know that I am the best. The best judge of whether or not this is good. Because the thing is, the only thing that takes me out of being the basic toddler in terms of eating is like my relativity to your basic toddler.
So
I just bought a big thing of mac and cheese from Costco because I eat it for lunch every day.
West Texas Mike in the chat says, I will never eat asparagus. I think we all know why. Yes, it makes your pee smell. Mark says this food is fine. I would eat it. It just seems plain. See, nothing wrong with plain. Plain is good. That means that you enjoy the sanctity of the food itself. Donnell says there's no flavor on this plate. There is flavor. All those things are full of flavor. They're full of flavor. There's so much flavor in there. Glenn says it's food chat time with Uncle Michael. Yes, it is. So, all right, let's get to the mailbag, shall we?
You've got mail.
All right, we got to an email earlier from Andrew, so I'll skip that one in our little rundown here, and let's go to our YouTube comment we got last week from Renaissance Man 11. I think that's what that's supposed to say. Who do you see as possible transfers for playing time and not fitting in a year from now? Just a thought. I put this on here because I wanted to sort of address this. We get this question periodically. Who do you think will transfer away, kind of thing? I find, maybe you feel differently about this, Alicia, so please let me know if you do. I feel uncomfortable answering these questions outside of just saying quarterbacks. Literally any of the quarterbacks could transfer because that's what is established as like the norm. Literally any quarterback could transfer. Like even the starting quarterbacks transfer now. So like any quarterback could transfer at any moment. That's just what college football is. Aside from that, I don't know. It's kind of it's kind of weird. Like, it's kind of weird it's more uncomfortable talking about with college football players versus, say, we were talking about
NFL guys
and like who could get cut kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, there's a limited number and dudes just have to get cut. So like that makes sense. But like dudes don't have to transfer. So I don't know. I feel uncomfortable talking about like who could transfer.
I take a little bit of a different sort of look at that in the sense that I think it would be icky if we were looking at the roster and saying this guy's going to transfer because he's not good enough and he's going to get run out of town. I don't want to do that. I'm not interested in that. What I would be interested in pondering for this question would be the Kyle Fords of it all, in the sense that it's like it's a player that's leaving because there's a logjam at their position and they're trying to just get more playing time, and it's like you love for them to stick around, but you also can't guarantee that they'd be anything more than the sort of fourth or fifth option in the receiving core, and so maybe it's best for them to branch out and see what they can become when they're given an opportunity somewhere else at a place that has a greater need at their position.
Right.
That's why I think you point to quarterback, because I think it's implied there because there's only one quarterback that plays. Like it is implied right now. Miller Moss, there was a discussion in the chat earlier that Miller Moss has already graduated and he's already working on a second degree. Like Miller Moss is a candidate to transfer.
Right.
If he's going to get an opportunity to compete for the starting job next year, if he loses that battle to Malachi Nelson, you're going to look at him and say, yeah, he's a good he could get an opportunity somewhere. He could transfer.
And not only that, like I mean this genuinely, like it's in his best interest to transfer.
Yeah, because if he's not going to be able to play at USC, like go see where you can do it.
Right.
I think you can apply that same.
You can apply that logic to like every other.
You can apply
position.
that logic to players at wide receiver. Absolutely. I look at someone like Kyron Hudson or Michael Jackson III, and I say, if they don't start to break through as trusted members of the wide receiver crew in more of a sense than they have over the last few years, they're gonna have to be guys who think about it. Who weigh their options. I love both of those guys. I want to see them succeed at USC. There's nothing I would give more than, like, I would have loved to see Kyle Ford come back and succeed at USC. Like it sounds, but they're going to have to consider it. We're going to find out from them where they stand. And it's not because of an ability thing. It's because, what are you going to do when you got the guys in front of you that you got in front of you? Like it's no shade. I think that there's probably guys in the defensive backfield that are in a similar position. If Prophet Brown isn't seeing regular minutes this year, Prophet Brown, Zamarian Gordon, Fabian Ross, Anthony Beavers, those kind of guys, they're gonna have to consider where their place is and whether or not they could go start somewhere else. And again, it's no shade. It's about figuring out who will and won't contribute, who will and won't be able to contribute, and there are a lot of reasons why you would or wouldn't be able to contribute. So, I think there are definitely names that you could look at and point to, that will have to have those conversations with their family, with their trusted people about whether or not they need to stick it out with USC or go see what they can find in the transfer market. But we won't know.
Yeah.
By October,
right.
Someone like Fabian Ross could be starting games for USC, and then suddenly it's like, yeah, no, he's not a candidate to transfer. It all depends on what happens during the season. And even if those guys do become candidates to transfer, it's not necessarily because of anything that they did. Even
look back in 2019 fall camp, everyone was gushing over Devin Williams. Middle of September, he transferred away. Like, you know what I mean? Like, things can change quickly in either direction. So those things are always changing. Let's go to YouTube questions we got here on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can always put your questions in the chat. You can put the word question at the beginning. That helps us sort of tag those for later and make sure that we get to those. Kenny says, what's your prediction for the outcome of the Pac-12 media deal tomorrow? I think Arizona for sure is gone, and I'm starting to buy Oregon leaving too. Yeah, I think Arizona. Has to be.
There's a lot of smoke around that fire. There's a lot of smoke around the Arizona fire.
The smoke doesn't happen if there's nothing. But secondly, like if there was truly nothing, it would have gotten shot down so much more vigorously and like by so many people in the know, and those people are not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, Oregon and Washington as brands, as athletics brands, need to be looking. They have to be.
I think the tough part for Oregon and Washington is I don't know what the answer is, because you do not want to make a reactionary move that ends up not being the right answer 6 months from now. Because I think in a lot of ways, I've mentioned this before, like I think the best move for the Pac-12 is to get in bed with the ACC. Because we know the ACC has had some issues.
Mhm.
They've had issues with media rights and stuff like that too. Like, okay, we'll band together and get strength in numbers and find a secondary media deal, or I don't know, just find stability in getting together something, so that way there's a reason for the schools to exist. And I think that there's, academic things at play that would match with the Pac-12 and the ACC. You'd go cross country, like there's reasons there. And I think that'd be a way to keep someone like Oregon and Washington from leaving. I just don't like, where are Oregon and Washington going to go? The Big 12? Like, is the Big 12 truly the best outcome for everybody? If so, then fine. But I don't know that is the best outcome. But also, I don't know that we know the best outcome, period. I don't know that the Big 10 is the best outcome for USC 5 years from now. Right now, I think it's the right decision for USC that they did the one that they did. But things are changing so quickly that 5-10 years from now, things could be so drastic. Maybe we don't even have conferences, period. Like, you know what I mean? Like, things are so weird that I don't know how to trust anything.
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah, I don't know. I know it's not a satisfying answer, but that's where it is. Finding on MC says, would you guys consider doing a tailgate meetup? Yeah, I think that we want to do a meetup of some sort. We've talked about it. We've done preseason meetups before. We've done those a couple of times, like the day before, the week before the first game. I think we want to do one of those here in August as we get before the first game. Tailgate meetups, not ideal. Alicia covers college football at large for fanside.com. So on a game day, that would be pretty difficult for her. But I think we want to do something, and we want to figure out some sort of meetup. So more details to come. So keep that in mind there. Cali Cat says, I feel like Alicia is getting jaded. I was hitting the everyone's favorite button.
Mystic Alicia is out in full force.
A lot during the Bear Alexander thing. Are you getting jaded?
No, I'm just way too excited. It's
self-preservation.
This is absolute self-preservation.
Okay.
This is there's there's so many reasons to be excited. I am so looking forward to the season.
Mm-hmm.
I think it could be so it's going to be so much fun. I can't wait. And so every little thing that is a threat to that enjoyment, to that excitement, feels like it's not jadedness, and maybe it's a little bit because I saw how the sausage got made in terms of media and practice and all of that kind of stuff. So like maybe there is an element of that in some of what I'm saying, but mostly it's that every threat to my happiness this fall feels like the biggest thing in the world. So yeah.
Yeah,
I'm emotionally invested, guys. I can't help it. I'm not dead inside. We spent years.
I actually think this is a case of optimistic Alicia.
We spent years saying just be dead inside going into USC season.
I mean, this is
we don't
true.
have to say that anymore.
This
is what happens.
That's the true jadedness of all of this. Yeah. Cigar says, do any USC receivers go over the 1,000 yard mark this year, or does Caleb spread it around on offense?
I think Mario Williams goes 1,000 in a full Full campaign.
Really?
Yeah.
Mario Williams is your pick there?
Oh, Mario Williams. Yeah.
Oh, I
You're Dorian Singer? Taj Washington? It really depends on which of them is healthy for the whole way through. That's the one that's doing 1,000.
Well, I think that's the fair answer. So I'm looking back at Oklahoma's numbers. They had 1,000 receivers almost every single season under Lincoln Riley, but I think you have to understand that this is a different receiving core. Back in 2016, D.D. Westbrook wasn't he a Heisman finalist? He had 80 catches. The next highest receiver had 32. Like, that is not going to happen this season. There's no way that that's going to happen. You're not going to have a guy who has 10 more touchdowns than Mark Andrews had 7, right? And D.D. Westbrook had 17. The next best wide receiver for Oklahoma in 2016 had 3. Jeffrey Mead had 3 touchdowns. D.D. Westbrook had 17. That is not going to happen this season. So, don't expect that. I think the more likely scenario is something like what happened at OU in 2018. You had Hollywood Brown with 1,300 yards, CeeDee Lamb with 1,158. But then you had nobody after that. Nobody else had more than 500. And again, I go to the problem of is Mario Williams the most likely to get 1,000? I don't think so. Dorian Singer is a returning first team all conference receiver.
Yeah, but Mario Williams has been catching passes from Caleb Williams for
yes.
He's got 2 seasons on Dorian Singer.
But you can also make the argument that Taj Washington's probably the guy to potentially have the most production, based on what he did last year and all that stuff. And then you add in, Zach Branch is the 5-star recruit. I think there's too many guys that you're going to end up. Maybe someone gets 1,000, but I would not bet on who it is. And I think the reality is that SC has a bunch of guys who have more than 700 yards.
Last year, USC had 4 that had 600 plus.
Yeah, I think the only prediction that I'm willing to say here, that I'm willing to actually feel good about, is I think SC will have 4 guys who are 700 plus. Who are those 4? I don't know, but I will say Mario, Taj, Singer, and Rice, I think. Which would have been the 4 last year. Okay. You put Singer instead of Addison.
Going back to 2009, which is CFB stats limit, USC has never had. Last year was the first time USC ever had 4 600-yard receivers.
Yeah, and SC's never had a receiving core that's this deep. Yeah. So I think that limits things a lot there. Glenn says, Alicia, how old do you have to be before you can start calling players kids? The chat had a discussion about this earlier. That they said that they thought it was 35.
I feel old enough.
Well, so if it's 35, and if you're in the chat still, comment on this, chime in. Is 35 the number because you gain the ability to run for president, and simultaneously you can then call players kids? Is that the perk? The con is, unfortunately, now you can run for office. But on the good side, you can call Caleb Williams a kid now.
I'm gonna create a different standard for myself.
Okay.
If I was in high school when a player was in diapers, I get to call them kid. If I could have babysat one of the players, I get to call them kid.
And this only works for child diapers, right?
For what?
Child diaper? This doesn't work.
Child diapers. I thought you said child labor, and I was like,
no, it was a dumb old people joke that didn't land.
Child diapers. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna put the babysat standard. If I could have babysat them, then
but see,
when they were kids, like
babysat is difficult because theoretically you can babysit someone who's like 5 years older than you.
That's true, but
like you can be a 14-year-old that babysits a 9-year-old.
If I could have babysat them when they were in diapers, let's put it that way.
Okay.
Within diapers, within the sort of standard ages at which you remain in diapers before you get potty trained. If I could have babysat them before they had to get, if I could have, I'm just gonna stop. Yeah.
The point is, you are comfortable.
I get to call them
kids.
They're kids. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, can you say these kids?
These kids.
Or is that
kids these days?
There you go. Mm-hmm. Kids these days, exactly how we talk about Gen Z. Am I right?
Yeah.
Or Gen Alpha, right? That's the next one.
Yeah.
Jeez. Looking forward to Gen Beta. Am I right? But all right, we're gonna wrap up the pod there. We'll be back next week again with 2 guests that we have 2 buttons for. One of them is this. And the other one, unfortunately, is this.
The brewing revolution is in full effect. The brewing revolution is in full effect.
Allegedly. So we'll be back on Monday to talk to Kenny, formerly from the What's Brewing Show. From Trailblazers Thursday, and Jake, currently from the What's Brewing Show. And so we're looking forward to that.
Real quick in the chat, Sean from beautiful Austin, Texas asked what the most underrated dessert was, and he said it's rice pudding for him. I agree, rice pudding is wonderful, and I
underrated dessert.
Give my thumbs up to rice pudding.
Underrated dessert. Yeah, okay, you know what it is? Because I'm taking the word underrated very literally. Because
unfrosted cupcake is the answer.
I think most things are rated.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to like.
That's why I feel like rice pudding is a good one.
It's those things in the cookie aisle that are like, they're rectangles and they're cookies.
The layers?
Yeah, they're layers and they've got like a steel grid pattern built.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
That they're like what Kit Kats would be if Kit Kats didn't get the chocolate on them.
Yes. Those things, underrated. Because literally nobody talks about them. The only person buying them is your grandma.
Yeah.
And
my dad. That's why
you get them and you're like, damn, these are like, why are we not buying these?
Yeah. My dad, who's now grandpa, so it counts.
This is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a true underrated dessert. So yeah. Cigar says ice cream is the only dessert that matters. Yes, and on that we will end this note because Glenn says wafers. Yes, they're wafers. Thank you. We have to end before we get into an ice cream conversation because Alicia doesn't think that ice cream is a dessert, and it's very disappointing.
No,
and
that's
that's what you believe. That's what you believe.
Slander.
That's what you believe. You don't think that ice cream should be consumed by itself.
No, I think ice cream.
You said ice cream is a condiment.
Dish. Yes.
Yeah.
Ice cream is
that is like
ice
utterly
cream
bad
is
shit.
best
People talk
when
about
served with other things, like a hot
Michael
piece
has
of
such
pie
bad
or
food
a
takes.
piece of cake.
Ooh, Michael's the one
or
with the
a
bad
hot
food
brownie.
takes. Yeah, she's the one that wants to put cream cheese on a hot dog and says that ice cream is a condiment. Get out of here. Get out of here. We'll be back next week. Until then, see ya, and make sure you